Hello and welcome to WhatKeepsYouAwake.tv. It's time again to dive into the hustles, the hurdles, and the highs that keep small business leaders up at night. I'm your host, David Hooser, and I'm fortunate to welcome today's guest, Paul Jeffrey. Paul is the founder of Paul Rene Furniture, established to design and craft luxury furniture as art. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, and you and I talked when we first met about when I first visited your site, the thing that drew me in was the office furniture designs you had. I couldn't find them, looked everywhere, couldn't find them, found them on your site. We'll get into more of that as we get going. But now, right now, tell me, as a creative entrepreneur whose calling found you, so to speak, what keeps you awake late at night?
Wow. I can, we'll be here all day, but I'll start with this.
We'll take them one at a time.
Yep, I'll start with this. So we've been doing this work for 15 years.
On furniture.
Yeah, on furniture. Prior to that, I was a car designer.
Yep, you told me.
So, it took us a good, let's say 10 years of time in the shop, me learning how to work with wood. Took us about 10 years in the shop for us to get good at it.
Right.
So
because it's, again, art. You're not just building four legs and a tabletop. You're actually putting uniqueness to every piece you do.
Yes. Every piece tells a story. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you need an office. You call us. We come to your home or your office, wherever the scene of the crime is, and we interview you. I want to know, and it's just random question. I want to know as much as I can learn about David. Like, where are you from, and what do you like about those?
Now, these are the things
colors.
We can actually tell our audience on YouTube, right?
Yes.
We don't have to go into everything about David. Right?
No, we don't have to go into everything about David.
Good.
We don't have to go into everything. Good. We don't get too personal.
All right.
But I do need to get a sense for your aesthetic.
Okay.
And your vibe.
Yep.
Right? So are you modern? Are you postmodern? Do you want to do something that is forward? Do you like color? Do you like wood? Do you like architectural shapes? Do you like organic shapes? So I'm trying to determine all of that by asking you a bunch of random questions and taking a lot of notes. So when we take that back to the studio, we put all that information up on a wall. We walk by it every day and just sort of marinate on those that intel that you gave us, and then I start sketching with you in my mind, and that those thoughts, those notes naturally create a certain shape language, a certain design language.
Do your ideas go beyond the furniture set that I am asking for? Does it go to the room? Do you ever do full room design, like my office, my home office?
Yes. So that is one of the questions we're going to find out up front. Even if you're just doing a piece of furniture, we always have to consider the room.
Right.
That's what custom is all about, right? It is custom to your space, for example.
Sure.
Not just, the dimensions and the functionality. It's custom in every way that we can find the opportunity to give you something unique. Yeah.
So just because I think this is important, it was for me when I first went to your website. As we talk, it would be good for our audience to be able to visualize through actually seeing some of the things that you have on your website. What's your website URL?
That's a fantastic question. It's Paul Rene, RENE, paulrenefurniture.com.
Yep. Okay.
And a picture is definitely worth 1,000 words. So if without having a picture, I think everything I say will not make sense. They need a picture.
They need a visual.
Yeah, because it's not.
You do.
This is not something you buy. At even a high-end luxury
Ashley Furniture.
Well, even way above that, right?
It's even way above.
Yeah, it's beyond that.
Yeah.
It has a soul. It communicates certain things. It's personal. It won't be seen in another person's house. It's a reflection of David.
Okay. And then customers, where do they come? How do they find you? Are you working mostly in the Phoenix metro or Arizona, markets? Are you
Yes,
national? Are you?
yes. We eat from the business that comes from Phoenix, but we have been fortunate over the last couple of years to get some national work, even some international work. So, um, talk about the name of the podcast. What keeps me up at night? Trying to make that transition. We've kind of outgrown. I should say the Phoenix market has changed a little bit, or maybe we've just grown to the point that we need to, and I don't want to sound offensive, but it's a certain, our aesthetic, it matches a certain tribe.
Right. Okay.
Right. And so we're trying to, that tribe is only so big in the Phoenix metro area. And so we have to look outside to find a bigger tribe. So yeah, we're that's what keeps me up at night, trying to figure out, we get a lot of press. A couple of years ago, we were on the Ellen show. The show was called America's Next Top Designer or whatever, right? Okay. So, in a lot of design magazines, especially local, some of the bigger brands, we've gotten press. So that's how we got known. But customers do a search, custom furniture, Scottsdale or whatever, and we come up, or they find us on social.
Right.
So
let's talk about it. You were in the car business. You were working for big
Ford.
Mm-hmm. Big leap to go from concept car design work to furniture, design and craft. So how did that happen? What made you take that leap?
Yeah.
Because that's good coin, man. Working for Ford and the design, the concept division department, they pay you guys well, man.
Well, they do. I was paid very well in my 20s. I was fortunate in that I was placed in the concept studio. So in the concept studio, you're thinking about what a car might look like in, 10 years or whatever the case may be, right? So you don't, it's a very sexy place to be if you just want to be creative. But if you have desires to want to see your product on the road, then you have to go into the production studio. And there is where I fell out of love with the business, because in the production studio, there's a lot of people making decisions. Just not, the designer doesn't have a lot of control. The accountant way up on the 50th floor can come down one day and say, that cool line right there that you spent a month sculpting, it's $5 too much per unit, get rid of it. So once you go through that a couple of times where you realize it's art by or designed by committee, it puts us a different, flavor in your mind. So I was, after doing that for a couple of years, I was ripe to, be listening to some other thoughts. So one day I'm in the city. I should mention before I tell you the story. My dad was blue collar. He put me through college working with his hands. He put his children through college working with his hands. Proud blue collar UAW kind of guy, right? So as I was growing up, I watched the demise of the American middle class. I watched the demise of that. And so, having been blessed to go to college and get a plum job, I was really in a privileged position.
Right.
And yeah, like you said, I was paid pretty well. So one day, I grew up in the suburbs. I didn't know a lot about the city. This sounds kind of weird. So, you start making a little money. I started venturing in parts of Detroit that I really knew nothing about, right? The real gritty side of Detroit, the nightlife of Detroit kind of thing. So my network was expanding, and one day I stumbled upon this public lecture where this guy was talking about Detroit is falling, and the men that live there are going to have to take responsibility to turn it around. And that struck me. I said, geez, here I am privileged, and I'm watching all of these people that used to earn a proud middle-class wage lose all of that.
Right.
Maybe I need to take my talent to see what I can do. I was so green back then. I really thought that as a car designer, I could go and affect change.
The world.
I was going to change. I was going to change the world, but I guess all artists got to kind of go through that. Anyway, so I quit Ford one day. I just up and quit Ford one day, and I decided I'm going to take this talent. I'm going to create a product. I wasn't sure what the product was, but I'm going to design some sort of artful product and sell it and create jobs. And that was my idealistic thinking back in the late 90s. And so I just got married, and my wife at the time, who was a lawyer, she was like, yeah, I don't really want to practice law, so let's do this. But we decided we didn't really want to be in Detroit. It was too cold. We were going to take our mission to Los Angeles and get started, at least in a warmer climate where I could hustle 24 hours a day.
Well, and like you said, there's a certain tribe, and that tribe might not be as abundant in Detroit as a market versus LA, where you would think that tribe would flourish.
Yes, that was also a reason for picking LA for sure. So anyway, I go out there, and my first seat at the table, I pushed all of my chips in, every dime my wife and I had saved to kind of get started as an entrepreneur, and I lost all of our money. It was about $100K.
Okay.
My first business adventure, and we had only been married for 3 months. I lost everything.
And this was in furniture or
no.
pre-furniture?
I hadn't gotten the furniture yet. I hadn't gotten the furniture yet. So I was attempted to buy a restaurant. I was going to buy a restaurant.
Okay.
That was what I was going to do. We're going to buy a restaurant, right? And again, just young and dumb and arrogant. I don't know why we picked a restaurant, but I wasn't prepared to go out to LA at that time to start designing and manufacturing something. So I needed to get something to get some business going.
Okay.
So anyway, we lost, I lost, everything. And that for the next 7 years, we just struggled. We couldn't come up out of that. And that's how we got to Phoenix.
Okay.
I come to Phoenix. I really wanted to get back in design. So my first job in 2003 was with California Closets.
Okay.
Designing high-end closets. Car designer. Went from concept cars to designing closets.
To designing closets.
I guess it's related.
It is, but more boundaries than I would envision you accepting, because California Closets is pretty much standard, this and this and this. How you piece it together is something, and you probably were able to influence some new pieces that they introduced to there. But they're pretty much a cookie cutter
system. They have
a
system, and you can change from blue to green, something like that. But anyway, so I'm working for California Closets, and the entrepreneurial. I'm 8 years since we left Detroit, and my desire to get back to the reason for leaving Ford was growing. And so the job at California Closets was really a blessing for me because it taught me their system.
Okay.
How they generated leads and how to sell.
Oh, interesting.
And that
not just the product system, but the business system.
The business system, yes.
Okay.
So, they invested a lot of money in search. So when we got started, that's what I did. I invested a lot of money in search, and today we get most of our leads from search.
All right.
So anyway, one day working for California Closets, I got sent to a very wealthy man. He lived out in Gilbert. He owns half of, what's the big company that makes these earth-moving, Empire Cat. He's like one of the major owners of Empire Cat, right? I got sent to this guy's house, and he told me what he wanted. I did the consultation. It was clear he could get whatever he wanted.
Right.
His wife found out something about my background. She said, "Oh, we don't want that. We want you to design us something, really, really special, right?"
That is them.
So I'm trying to maximize the options that California Closet offer. So I designed something, and I show it to them. This was something that California Closets could build. But then once they found out the product was not real wood, that's when they jumped off, right? So I'm walking out the door, And I turned to the couple. It was a $50,000 job. I really needed that job. I said, hey, I know some, laborers, some craftsmen in the city. Will you let me take this job and get it produced on my own?
Okay.
They were so invested in the design, they said, yeah, why not? So I went and went to the west side of Phoenix. I know in Detroit that every urban area has a west side where there's a lot of small shops.
Right.
So I went to West Phoenix. I stumbled upon a strip. It's like 7th Avenue and I-17 of like a row of craftsmen. I stopped at one of them. They were all Spanish speaking. I couldn't communicate. There was a little boy in the parking lot who spoke English. I said, can you translate something to your father? And he did, translated everything. His father said he'll take the job, and we produced this high-end closet for Mr. Whitman. That was the name of the owner of the Empire Cat, Mr. Whiteman. And that's kind of how it
started.
Again, if it found me, if I would never have picked California Closet, but it was a way for me to get back into design.
Okay. That's a great story. And that, I mean, the key is because of the way you think, you saw that opportunity and you took it. You didn't walk away.
That's right.
That's how entrepreneurs have to position themselves as opportunities come. Are you ready for them? Are you able to? Will you recognize them when they arrive?
All of that, and I will say in another case, are you humble enough?
Yeah.
To accept what you might think is, beneath you.
Right.
Coming from cars to designing closets that would be considered a couple steps down.
Not your stuff though. I mean, I get it, but I know what you're saying. But because I told you when we first met, I looked for everywhere. I couldn't find even close to what I wanted in setting up my personality in my home office. Couldn't find it.
Well, that's a very good point that you bring up, which gets to what keeps me up late at night. How to, now that we have taken it to the next level, which I think is the highest level, it was one thing for be able to put up a website and invest in SEO and, maybe even develop a relationship with some of the high-end furniture stores or, showrooms around here. But that's one level of client, and we've serviced that level of client. It's an affluent client for sure, right? But our work has become so refined, so meaningful, so spiritual.
Right.
It's at the highest level now. So be able to find that crowd who understands that art,
Right.
respects that art, is willing to pay for that art. That has been difficult for us to find that group.
Yeah.
In numbers.
Well, and like you said, you could find it. It's in the world.
It's in the world.
But you got to reach the world. And you're talking about a shipping issue. We were talking about not, just IKEA style furniture that comes packaged in everything's custom designed and custom produced for you. So
yes.
Now, are you looking at? I know you talked to my wife about looking in other markets. Now, when you go into another market, you have to go in and find the manufacturing source locally, or is there a certain ability to distribute to markets,
Yes.
within a certain radius of
So currently what we do is all production is local.
Okay.
Yeah, we make it here, we ship it, we send the guys out to wherever it might be,
Right.
and they install it. But going forward, no, that's going to have to evolve. We will have to establish and vet, the top craftsmen in a particular locale.
Right.
So we obviously have to come to, the home and get a feel for not only the space, but your house, your aesthetic, all of that, right? That's what my team and I, can do up front. That's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And I've been involved in the production side for so long now, I can have a 15, 20-minute conversation right away and determine if this is someone that, can deliver what we're
really?
expecting, and what the client is expecting.
Really?
I know that language now.
Right.
And so getting back to the beginnings, having to start off in the shop, I didn't grow up with a saw in my hand, a chisel in my hand. I learned about woodworking, it was like literally on the job training, and I had to do it because I needed to sell and eat and these kind of
Right.
things. But that experience in the shop has made Paul Rene really head and shoulders above, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe 95% of all furniture designers worldwide.
Wow.
If you don't know about the tools and what the tool can do, you're limited.
Right. And what you could end up creating for your
very
client.
limited. Yep.
How do you conceptualize, create? Is it freehand? Are you using CAD tools, software tools to help you design? Or
Great question. So the thinking today with all of this technology is, I don't know about AI. I haven't gotten that far to think through it, but the thinking today that with all of this technology, CAD, whatever, that one can create something unique and special using digital tools. I would argue you can't do that.
Yeah.
No, I much of our work is produced through mistakes.
Oh, interesting.
So in the car world, you're taught to draw from the shoulder. So you're drawing like this. You're not drawing from the wrist. You're taught to draw from the shoulder, big strokes. And when you start drawing, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to draw a Tesla. That's not the way it works.
No.
You're just sketching. You're being an artist. So you're drawing ovals, and you're drawing squares, and you're drawing an oval on top of the square on top of the oval.
Right.
And you see all of these different shapes, and then the visionary in you will be able to separate and gel and be able to make something out of what really is a mess of shapes. That's true creativity.
Right.
So you take from all of these little doodles, and then you bring it into CAD to make it work.
I see.
Okay, now this thing has to be, if it's a desk, it has to be 30 inches tall.
Right.
So you sketch it first. Coming from the car world, all of my sketches look like cars. They were low and sleek. Right? So when you take that to the furniture world, now if you take this low and sleek sketch, and you got to make it 30 tall, and once you make it, it's like, oh,
or bar height, or
that looks terrible. That's not gonna work, right?
Right.
But it's by going through that process, you stumble upon things you didn't see, and you just can't do that in the digital space where you only got 5 options to click.
Right.
Right. So when you're drawing, I could fill up a pad of paper in a week and think there's nothing there. Man, I've got nothing out of that. And then I'll go back to it the following Monday, and that's the coolest shit I've ever seen.
Together.
That's what we're going to make right there.
Yeah. So
technology, I think, and maybe I might sound old school to some of the new cats out there. I don't think that the technology, even with AI, you're limited by your language. What if you have a limited language?
Right.
Right. But in sketching, there's shapes we don't have names for.
Right. Right.
We know circles and squares and triangles, but does that make sense? I hope I answered that question.
I get it. And then what was the first product you came up with when you first got into Paul Rene's
A chair.
launch? So
the worst thing you can start with.
Is that right?
Because the chair's got to be comfortable.
Yeah.
The seat angle has to be right.
I've been in some places where those chairs were not designed for me to sit in. They look cool. But you want them to look cool and conform and be, desirable by the people that you're welcoming into that room, into that space. So,
And it's easy for a homeowner to be seduced by the whole artist,
yeah, I can see
you
that.
know. And so we sold some things that were pure art, and then once the client experienced, it's like, shit,
Yeah,
this thing
I can't do
this thing
this.
hurts.
Yeah,
So that's all a part of the journey that we've had to go through, which again has made us really, really, really good. We had to learn all of those mistakes. Where
right.
does art meet design? Where does functionality trump
Art.
art?
Right. Yeah. So it's a balance, and maybe in certain products, chairs, for example, but tables, maybe that gives you a little more opportunity on the arts to be more creative in the flow and the uh, structure of the product. So
And I would say anything other than a chair, there is you know, bookshelves, libraries, right? So our
yeah,
libraries are some of our most expressive.
yeah, I can see that.
But at the end of the day, the shelf has to be 12 inches deep.
Right,
That's standard,
right.
right? So there's some things you cannot play with, but the chair is the one. Again, you're going to you might make it 3 or 4 times and go bankrupt.
So do you have a standard product that you can offer to the market? Someone's going through your website. Am I going to see 5 things and go, yeah, I just want that?
Yeah, so we launched our first another thing that keeps me up late at night. So about a year and ago, I invested a lot of money in producing our first collection.
Okay.
So part of Paul Rene's progression is to make materials speak. So material has a meaning. So why the green? Why this shape? Why this? Right? So the collection that we develop, each piece has a story to it, a
Yeah.
story that we think is pretty universal. So yeah, that's available. But again, trying to, as I heard one guy tell me several years ago, make it and then figure out how to sell it. We've we we we've done that. It's a hard that's a hard road.
Pushing rope sometimes. Yeah.
That's a hard road, but we're all in, man. I'm all in, and there's no other place for me to go. I love what I do. Really love what I do. We're really good at it. We just have to master the the business side. I mean, the artwork it's just not possible to do mass production. So when we meet a client,
Right.
I mean, we're committed to that client for a
For a while.
for a long period of time. And so you got people in line. How do you, and trying to scale a business like that? I mean, I studied, I went to a school that taught you conceptual design. That's
Right.
at the root of our work. But not every designer has the ability to conceptualize.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought on designers who, you see their portfolio. It's like, okay, this guy's got it. This girl has it. But then, you give them a new project, and it's like, that's not what Paul Rene needs. I need
Right.
you to be at this level.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's got to be hard to find people like-minded that have your eye, your
like-minded, and when
flair.
we talk about like-minded, this like creativity is there is some pain involved in being creative.
It is.
It's not all sexy.
No, you're right.
You know what I mean? I mean, I want to deliver our clients, the Mona Lisa every time. And that becomes difficult because I'll give you a design, and you say, Paul, you put on your design hat and you want to come and change something. And it's like, it doesn't work with what I've said, but I got to figure out now how to change it. I got to figure out how to give you what you want.
Right.
And what if we go through that 10 times with one client? That can be like, Jesus, that was
time
rough.
consuming.
But that's our commitment. I love it, but it's got to be a more efficient way. But if there is, we're open for ears.
I had
We're open for.
I had an architect that was designing the house I built in Scottsdale, my last house, and he gave me a design based on our initial discussion, which is very traditional, and so then I thought, before we take this, to the next step, because at that time I was into feng shui, and I said I've got a consultant that I want to solicit, and I pay them some money, and just give me your feedback. Where am I weak? Where am I creating bad, chi? Where am I, looking good? What rooms, what sections of the house are designed for what purpose matters in feng shui. So I gave them the plans to my now counselor, and they proceeded to mark it up. And I was all excited because I thought, well, these are all doable things. I took it to my architect, who threw it out the window and said, how can you, bastardize my work, and, things like that. So it was interesting. Now, of course, I'm the customer, so I said, you don't have to do it, but someone's going to do it. So either you want to follow through with this project or not. So, I appreciate what you're saying, because I should have given that instruction first. But sometimes you just think of things as you go. I'm just a human. But I was paying a lot of money for that. It was a 10,000 square foot under roof property on an acre in central Scottsdale. So I wanted it to be me. And it became known it was a unique structure, dwelling, and became known as the compound. And I was always proud of it. But it's interesting you say that, because that's something I experienced where I almost had to start all over because my architect said, you can't change my design. I'm like, wait a minute, it's my house. And your mindset is right. It's like, I'm going to give you something very unique. And then there's going to be some iteration, some engagement between you and your clients on refinement of what you do, I guess.
You bring up another point, which gets to let's say the bigger, I'm going to use the word divine, the divine purpose of art and design. So there are architects and designers or whatever who do variations on a trend. Whatever's hot,
right?
They're just going to give that to you and make it, instead of green, it's polka dot, right? And there's a lot of that out there. That's the majority of majority of the market. But the purpose, the gift that we have is about moving culture forward, right? The artist speaks, in nonverbal language, but at the end of the day, their ultimate goal is to inspire people to get you to see things differently, to keep things moving.
Right.
And right now, we've been stuck in that mid-century modern. That was back in the 1950s. This is 2020. We've been feeding off the same aesthetic for 75 years.
Right.
So it's the people, the masses, the consumer, is being cheated by what the artist's job, the designer's job, should be about what comes next.
Right.
If that's what you're looking for, unless you want mid-century modern, that's fine. That's not. I don't have an issue with those who love that, right? But to present that as the only option, I think is does a disservice to the art. So yeah, when I come out and visit or whatever, or back to your architect, yeah, I can see him getting because it's about him. It's about. But I see it differently. It can't be about you bring to me something. You're a unique individual. I've never met you before, so you bring me inspiration
Right.
I've never been in contact with. So
Yeah.
your interaction with me is going to affect the art, and that's progress. You affected the art. I
Right.
met a new individual. You see it differently.
Right.
So anyway, I didn't mean to go so far off of
but that makes sense.
That,
But I can have a bad day on the first day I meet you, and go, this is what I think I want, and then get
that's part
back
of it.
and
That's part of
get
it.
reset and come back to you and say, Paul,
That's part of it. Listen, but if you're willing to pay for it, then that's
right. That's right. Of course.
But I think that's the way it works. You will have an idea today, but you might wake up tomorrow and say, "What a dumb idea!" I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Your wife may not like it,
Right.
so there has to be space in there for you
Right.
to be human and change and have a different opinion. And what you like yesterday, you don't like today.
Yeah. Got it. All right. So, talking to entrepreneurs who might be looking at taking up their journey, what words of wisdom do you have for them? Do it. Don't do it.
If you're going in the arts, no, I would never tell no one not to do it. You
Okay.
got to do it. If you feel that deep conviction, like this, you wake up every morning and you're not happy until you're on that field doing that thing. You have to do it.
Have to do it.
And and some of us get the bag quicker than others. The bag has been a little bit elusive for us because the vision. What I see has just been difficult for me to. It's not a quick manifest.
Right.
It's not a quick manifest. So again, we're doing furniture as art. To make a piece of furniture, tell a story, that is not, those aren't idle words.
No.
We're really trying to put some meaning in this thing, and to get people to come along with you, to get craftsmen who want to be patient with me, to reach the pinnacle, because that's the way we think. We think we have the potential to be, I hate to sound arrogant, but like leaders in this space, like and in a time period where people need inspiration. So we've come to that realization that is where we want to be, and we're going to pay the price to get there. And I think we're really opening the door to that space. We put that time in now. So back to the original question, don't sell yourself short for the dough.
Right. Okay.
The world needs your inspiration, your insight. We need it.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, while we're at it, let's talk real quick about, once again, things you want the audience to hear on your business, on your journey. Talk about the website again. Talk about the demographic of your ideal client. Talk about things along those lines for a moment. So
let me start with again, after all that long conversation about art and design, I don't do this for the art and design. That's not why I do it anymore. I do it getting back to my experience in Detroit. I watched the demise of the middle class go away. So what are all of these people who are not going to learn tech, right? Who are made to create things, right? How are they going to express that gift in a world where robotics and all that stuff is sort of taken over? So what drives me today is there is a need for an example for somebody, like me, who's willing to, who still believes and is willing to walk that journey so he can go back and teach others how to do it, how to be an independent, self-expressed artist that produces stuff that there's a ton of people with ability to make things and envision things, cars or whatever. They just don't have an example.
Right.
And so that's my job. That's what motivates me.
Okay.
To all of those youngsters in Detroit, in the inner cities, all around, where the factories have been moved away and moved to China or whatever. They have nothing, no outlet, no creative outlet to express the craft, making things with their hands.
Right.
So that's what, and that sounds like some pie in the sky stuff. But I told you I grew up in the church. So, but that's, we've mastered the art side of it. Now we want to be able to build a community of the whole west side of Phoenix is just a maker space where people are making real things that people can afford and that are useful.
Gotcha. But replicate that in other markets as well.
That's needed everywhere. Again, I'm from Detroit. I've been away from Detroit now for 20 years. It's become a tech hub.
It's transitioned from.
It's transitioned, but its roots is in making things.
It is, right. It is.
And we got to make things. I hate to get on my horse and start preaching, but America has to make things again.
I agree.
That's what made the middle class.
That's right.
So it sounds pie in the sky, but it gets me up in the morning.
All right. Good deal. So that's going to wrap up our show. And before we go, I'll give you one last chance. We'll throw up your website, your URL. Let you do what I call a shameless plug. What message you want your potential clients to have before we go?
Yes. So to our affluent clients who would be attracted to our work, it is, one thing to look at all the options at some of the top producers of great furniture all around the world, but it's something else to have a piece crafted that you actually recognize. So as I said in the beginning of the conversation, we come and interview you. I want to know your life story. I want to know why you bought that dog. Or I want to know the colors that you like. And so to be able to reflect that back to you in the form of furniture, I think is something that you deserve and can have and is available. So that's what we do. It's furniture, it's art, it's symbolism, it has meaning, it's legacy. It's probably the kind of thing you pass on to your children. It is meaningful matter, meaningful stuff.
But
furniture.
Functional as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely functional. That's again, in closing, I studied industrial design. Industrial design is about, first and foremost, functionality.
When you visit paulrenefurniture.com, you'll see what I saw. It will leave an impression on you. And Paul, thanks for joining us. That's going to do it for this show. Remember to follow us on whatkeepsyouawake.tv or wherever you get your podcasts. And tell fellow entrepreneurs and friends, family to catch an upcoming episode. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.